Hello, and welcome to another Grow Your Joyful Life Foundational Playshop with yours truly, Heidi Esser. And I also have a special guest today. I am a storyteller and joy coach. I empower helping professionals and women who take care of the world to break out of those self-defeating emotional and thought loops, when you feel like you're just in the fishbowl and you can't get out. And I help them cultivate self-leadership skills to rewrite their stories to start with joyfully ever after. I can do this because I've been there, mommy doormat in the trenches, doing and being and helping for everybody else, just trying to take care and make the world a better place. I walked through 10 years of loss, grief, growth, some drunken mom karaoke, some bad poetry was in there for a good mix. And I discovered something more miraculous than dark chocolate, my joyful purpose. I have over 17 years experience as professional relationship builder, veteran storyteller, and a mama, engineer, and poet. Well, I can't remember where I put my keys, and I did lose my glasses for like 5 hours the other day. They were on my windowsill. I don't even know why. I can still see the thousands of steps it took me to create my joy. And I am here with my peculiar genius and a special guest to help you create your joyfully ever after too. All right. I am creating a neighborhood where we just peel back those layers and roles that no longer serve us so we can authentically connect and welcome and joy of our very own. All right. So today is a special Grow Your Joyful Life Foundational Playshop on mindfulness. And why is it so special? Because I have a special guest. Welcome, Jennifer Erwin.
I'm so glad to be here.
Yay. It is always so lovely to welcome you back to the show and where we get to talk about all the stuff and, important topics so that people can break right out of those cycles that they get themselves in. So Jennifer, I'm gonna introduce you a little, and then I want you to just fill in the blanks for everyone. So Jennifer is a professional life coach with expertise in serving women physicians and others in caregiving positions. She supports women in decreasing burnout, hala, and increasing well-being through an evidence-based coaching model, as well as through her online self-compassion programs. And who doesn't need more self-compassion? I think the whole world needs to raise their hand for that one. She is passionate about helping women grow their confidence and life satisfaction through taming the inner critic or the inner committee. I know I've had a committee, and developing an unshakable sense of trust in themselves. Ooh, I love that, unshakable, right? So beautiful. All right, so fill in the blanks. Jennifer, tell us a little more about you.
Yeah, that is my passion. Purpose is really helping women step into that place of unshakable sense of worth and trust and just really build that relationship with themselves. I feel like that's like my mission. I know that that's the journey that I've been on, and that's often where we find our purpose is where our journeys lead us, right?
Yeah, I was going
Building
to
that
ask you,
relationship.
I don't know if we've ever dove really into what was like that. Did you have a moment or like a segment of your journey that really you were like, oh, this is how I healed and this lights me up and this is what I'm going to do. Like, where was that moment? Was it a critical, just like burn down moment, build up moment?
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know that I have like that critical turning point. I think I've just always known, and that's been my thing. Because even when I was like probably like preteen, like I've been on this journey for so long of like, there's something going on here. And I was like seeking information for so long. I think there's been some key critical points where like I think in my early 20s, I was teaching. I was like just I was living on my own. So I had a little bit of space to like figure things out. And I was taking all these classes and I was like, I don't love myself. Like that was like so clear of like, oh, this inner voice. Like I was starting to explore the inner critic and like taking I was taking a workshop called Your Inner Mean Girl. By Amy Ehlers, and I'm like blanking on the other person, but it's an amazing course. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so mean to myself. Like I kind of knew that, but it was like so clear. And then realizing like all the old patterns of like achieving and like people pleasing and beating myself up, it just like warped again, where I was like starting to learn all these patterns. And then I was like just using that of like beating myself up for not being kinder to myself. And that's too where I was like,
You're like, I'm gonna lay. Yeah, you're realizing that you're layering that shame on top of everything, and then like, because you're not subscribing to that, getting to that
yeah,
perfect threshold, right?
yeah. And I think it
Oh
was
my
then
god.
that like clue of like, oh my gosh, there's something that I need. Like, I don't know what it's like to experience this unconditional love for myself. And that's where like I think the next level of my journey. And I was like, okay, I've got to find what is it that I need to shift out of. And so that's what I love helping people do is like, what is the old story that they're trapped in? So even when I
Mm.
recognized that it was self-love that I needed, I was still operating under this old pattern that I wasn't enough, not even enough at self love. And so it's like, how do you step out of that old story that maybe you've been operating in your whole life and really build that bridge to like, what would it be like? This place I don't know yet. How do I build that bridge to get to that new space? And that's what I love doing. And that's what I'm continuing to do with myself. I think it's a never ending journey
Journey, yeah, because
to
it's kind of
build
like a
that
cycle.
bridge.
Because we can get caught back.
Yeah.
I remember when I first came across like, I don't know, I think it was a book by Melody Beattie. I read a lot of her
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like a almost 10 years recovery and from Codependence Anonymous and a 12-step program for those of you who don't know. And I remember her saying like there was reading something as like affirmations about self-love. And I was like, I remember always like I was walking around, right? Unconsciously, I'd be like, self-love is bullshit. Self-love is bullshit. Self-love,
Yeah.
right? And but then I got to this place where it was like the heat of the pandemic. And then I got to this place where it's like, I felt called to like share my story and be vulnerable and messy and share my moment. And I'm like, what is different from me today
Mhm.
than yesterday? I'm like, what was activated? And it was at this place where I like believed in myself. So like at some point I had become okay with myself and I had started loving myself. But then there was this like other piece that I hadn't even realized that was like a part of the puzzle. It's like, oh, because I believe in myself, then I'm going to go for it. I finally got myself on my own team.
Hmm.
Like other people, right? Other people, they see that in us before we do. We're just like, I don't want to be right. I don't want to share that, like I'd be like going through peppermint tea and like, lots of stuff before going and sharing my like 7-minute stories live once a month. It was like the most terrifying thing, but I was like, I want to keep doing this. And then finally I was like, oh my God, I want to do this all the time. And I was like, I don't even know if there's enough peppermint tea in the world that can handle. Yeah, but like once I was on my own team, like it was so like I was like, oh, I'm no longer like, hijacking myself and beating myself up Fight Club style before going on stage.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. Oh my
And
gosh.
it's amazing what that unleashes that amount of energy, how time consuming
Yes.
and energy draining it is. And once you like free that up, it's actually easier to step into that new place than you thought. But you have to have your own back because if you're the one who's beating yourself up, like, man,
You're
yeah,
not gonna get there, and that's a lot of people just get stuck, and they're just like, because
right.
when I talk about self-leadership with women, the first part is I talk about responsibility, like responsibility for our happiness, and so that kind of has to rewire, like, right, we're all
Mhm.
responsible, like so responsible for everything and everybody else, but like, oh, there's that. And so like worthiness is part of that. So we
Mhm.
have to feel worthy enough to
Yeah.
like even jump on that bandwagon where we say like, all right, I'm gonna try to go for happy.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think that was possible. I was just trying to like it was survival.
Uh-huh.
So many is just like, I just need to survive. I just need to get through this, season, through this school year, through
Yeah.
this project,
Whatever. It's always the next thing, right?
through the end of school. Right now it's like May. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, they're calling it September, like May-cember. Like it's May and December all in
Uh-huh.
one lovely
Mhm.
little, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I
Wow.
got up like an hour early today and I made scrambled eggs and I like went to 2 stores to get my kids the right donuts for finals. Like, and I
Yeah.
was like, 'Cause I knew I was gonna do that, but it's just like this whole month has been kinda like got all these little extra bonuses
Yeah, that
in
sometimes
there.
creep up on you where you're like, "Wait, oh yeah, I have to do that," because it's a one-time thing. It's just the
Uh-huh.
end of the year, end of the school year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Totally. Alright, so I wanna back up, anyone who is watching live or in the replay feels please feel free to say hello and let us know that you're here and put any questions in the chat. We will, Jennifer and I will for sure get back to you with any and all of your questions about anything we're talking about. Like if you wanted to share like what moment that you that had to do with like, oh, that was my aha moment that moved me into my next phase of my life. Or you can always email me at howdy@heidiesser.com. And if it's a question for Jennifer, I will get it to her. So, all right,
Mm.
let's get started. So I always start with all my guests with this one question. Jennifer, how are you taking care of yourself today?
Mm. That's so good. That's such a good question. It's a good question to get asked so you can like recognize and
Mm.
celebrate and honor it, and also just kind of review like, what do I want to do to take care of myself?
Mhm.
Yeah. I this morning I sat with my cat while I meditated. So that's one of those things. Again, we're talking about mindfulness today and not meditation, even though meditation is a tool for mindfulness. But I do use it, and I've also given myself permission to break rules. So a lot of times when you learn about meditation, they're like, you have to sit this way or whatever. So I sit in a chair, probably not fully upright, and my cat climbs all over my lap and finally settles down. And that's just what works for me. And I can actually drop into a space of mindfulness better, letting myself have
I
the
love
choice.
that. You
So
gotta
that's
honor how
one
you were
thing.
made, and you were made to
Yeah.
connect with your cat, like, in that moment, right, in that
Yeah.
way.
And to
Mm.
not put rules, because it's like if we expect it to be perfect or look a certain way or whatever, it's taken me a long time to get there too, because I'm a rule follower and a rule breaker, both and anyway, but it is actually really peaceful. Like, talk about having like your own little grounding pad. My cat
Mhm.
weighs, 12, 13 pounds. It like centers me, and it's a
Ah,
little purr and all those things. So that's one of the ways I take care of myself, is by getting quiet in the morning and letting it look just the way it needs to look for my life and where I am.
oh my god. I love that
Yeah.
so much. So I'm gonna piggyback off that, because I practice meditation every day, and my meditation is very different from how you practice. So, I did try getting up in the morning when I first learned about meditation, like, to do, like, the sitting on the floor, and, I just couldn't do it. It was just not cool. But I've been on a streak, like, maybe 1 or 2 years now, like, just solid streak so I will either stay in bed if my
Mm.
wife has already gotten up for the day, or I will go somewhere and I will lay down and I'll put a blanket completely over myself, and then I will take, I'll either have my Chewini, so that's 8 pounds of grounding, or, one of my stuffed animals, so I have a buddy, and then I put because, when I was when I was little and I would have nightmares, I always put a blankie over my eyes, and I thought that protected me. Like, this is how I honor my young inner
Mm.
child, is I, like, will put a blanket over my eyes saying, like, "You are safe and you are
Mm.
calm," and so that allows me to drop
Yeah.
into this place of quiet and rest and restoration. And so, yeah, so most days I meditate under a blanket with a stuffed animal or animal and a blanket over my eyes. And so
Mm.
that's how I started. That's how I started today.
Calling it out. Give yourself permission to make it look whatever you need.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. All right.
Mm.
So let's get started. So we're both going to define, we're just going to have a conversation about mindfulness, like what our experience that we've had with different pieces of it, what it is, and some examples of daily mindfulness. Obviously, we both just already gave an example of meditation. And then we're going to talk about what's so great about it. So, like, what's the big deal? Why is this such a hot buzzword for everybody? So, Jennifer, do you want to go first on defining mindfulness?
Sure. Yeah, there are a lot of definitions out there. And I think that the one that I've kind of landed on, that I'm like holding on to right now, is just attention on. So bringing your attention on and your awareness to the present moment with acceptance, which is really key, because we can bring a lot of awareness and, like resistance can be there, but you've got to have acceptance of the resistance too, or acceptance of all the things. So to me, that is really with mindfulness, of like holding attention and space with acceptance of what is right here, right now.
I love it. Just bring it back in. So I have a little prop that I'm going to use. I didn't bring it to my desk. Let me quick go. I got to pick a pretty color for it. Okay. So, I talk about mindfulness as developing the compassionate co-pilot. So I give these little toy cars away during when I talk and do workshops or whatever. They actually do work. You can pull them back and then they zoom around.
Oh.
So they're fun. And so I talk about like the driver's seat, say the driver's seat of your metaphorical car is like you enjoying all the juicy things life has to offer, like, tasting that piece of chocolate ganache cake, or like smelling the peonies in full bloom, right? Having those like rich discussions with your friends where you feel so connected and loved. And so just like being completely present moment into like all the juiciness of life. So mindfulness to me is being the compassionate co-pilot. So it's like kicking everybody else out who could be there, because co-pilots are the ones who usually have the directions for life, right? So kicking out anyone there who would, right, be like the grouchy, not accepting person saying you did that wrong, or I can't believe, right? So no judgment, right? And just saying like with like a compassionate observer, like, hey hon, do we need to get off at the rest area? Do we need a Frosty? Like, what's going on? And so just being, right, that mindful, compassionate observer. And so I got a whole like lot of these little toy cars, and I was so happy that both of my teens, they were like, I want a car. And I was like, you have to sit and talk with me about what the car means before you get to pick your car, because they were all different. They're all different colors of the rainbow. And so I was very proud that both my kids and my wife all sat through the compassionate co-pilot talk.
Yay. That's a win in and of itself, right?
I know. I was like, it's little miracles. Miracles can happen every day. Oh my God.
With the right kind of incentive, who knew it would be a sparkly car?
I know. Toys. I gotta bring more toys into my work. So, so I guess I'll go first on the next one. So, first, okay, we're going to talk about our first experience with mindfulness. So one of my first experiences, so as you now know, like I used to walk around basically saying like self-love is bullshit, and like people are just like little I used to like snake oil salesman. Like I would think like the whole self-help industry, that's what I was brought up to believe, like is there just like a bunch of BS, and there was no truth to it. So I wasn't listening, right? There was no mindfulness involved in that. And so when I started on this journey, I had discovered, like I went through this period where like I loved orange. Like all of a sudden it was like, it was right around time I was discovering my sexuality. And so the oranges, like not the root chakra, but the next one up. I don't know all the chakras by name. Sacral chakra. And that's color orange. And so like everything, like I just loved orange. I was attracted to everything that was orange. And so my wife bought me an orange journal, but it wasn't just like plain, it was a gratitude journal. And I was like, oh, okay. So what do I got to do with this? It's got directions. And so, it took me many, many tries, but I developed a somewhat regular, I won't say daily, that's now, but a somewhat regular dive into gratitude. And that really was probably my first practice of mine. That was before I was doing anything like yoga and stretching and breathing, and meditation was much, much, much later. So like just daily gratitude. And that's what I do. I do around the table whenever my whole family's around the table, and these days it's like craziness because it's May. But we all go around and we do like 3 rounds of gratitude about something that we're grateful for today. Because sometimes everyone comes to the table and it's like complain, 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 complain. I'm so tired. I'm gonna shove as much food in my mouth to like calm my body down, and then we're just gonna go about our day. So then I kind of bring it back to like today, right? Presence and then gratitude. So, what about you? What would you say, like, one of your fishing and watching my bobber, like,
Yeah.
and maybe that's why I love fishing so much because I didn't have to do anything but just sit.
Yeah. And wait.
Yeah.
And be there. Yeah. Watch. Yeah. I started pretty early. I think because I was always like seeking for something. I mean, that's kind of the gift of the story of not enough, is that I kept trying to fill myself
Like,
up, and I was in the
what is it?
self-help like world. So even when I was like probably like 10, 11, 12, so I was reading books like um 7 Habits for Highly Effective Teens. And I read a book called Invisible Tigers, which is all about stress response. And like
Ooh.
there was like a teen for mindfulness book. So I was incorporating lots of different things. And I think the first thing that so I had like that formal mindfulness, but another thing that I think is good to draw on, that I was drawn to, I'm trying to think of what's here. Sarah Ban Breathenach. She wrote a book called Simple Abundance, and she talks a lot about the senses and sensory awareness. And that was something that I always felt called to, and it didn't feel as much like self-improvement as something like joy. And I think that was my first taste of true mindfulness that wasn't like work. Like I wasn't
prescriptive, like I have to do this.
Yeah, I have
like,
to find this thing, and still like not quite sure what it was. Like that was like more meditation. But this was more like, how do I just enjoy being in the present moment in my body?
Oh, so
And
was it kind of like meditations, or was it like go for a walk and try to do like give me an example of like how that.
Yeah. So it might be like more of like a sensory walk. Like, okay, so we're going to like, she has like different months and things. She also has a book called Romancing the Ordinary that kind of dives a little bit more into that. And that is where it's like, okay, like for this month, what are we going to savor? You know, what is May all about? You know, here we're just moved out of flower season because it's Colorado and it's a little late. But every time I walk past the lilac bush on my like walk around the neighborhood, like how do you just smell? Like you can just walk past it and feel the whiff, but I like stop. It's right by the road. So I'm like sticking my nose in, I probably look,
You're like,
interesting.
I'm gonna get this all over my face.
Like, how do I really, but like, what does a lilac smell like? What is that really like? Like I have this moment and I have this beautiful body. And like, she has a lot of like sensory things. Like what kind of clothing do you like to wear on your body? And a lot of like playfulness too, of like, just, what do you like to wear, and how can you make it fun and playful?
Yeah. How can you bring joy, right? How can you Marie Kondo your life, right? Yeah. I totally talk about that when I say we take responsibility for, like when we take responsibility for our happiness and we point that car towards north, which is our true north, which I think is joy, right? Start filtering, right? I went through a whole phase where I filtered my whole closet out of, I was like, all these clothes make me feel frumpy.
Yeah.
They're all off the island. I'm like, I'm just going to wear like tank tops now because there's something so freeing. And maybe it's just because like I'm in my mid to late 40s and I need to air out all the time, even in the winter, whatever. So like, it just brings me joy. Like, cause I do a lot of swimming. And so like, I'm proud of like my shoulders and my arms. And so I'm like, this is what I'm doing right now. Cause it brings me joy. Yeah. And like, I like a certain, like I usually wear 100% cotton, like all the time.
Oh. And just standing in that place and like discovery, there's like that place of discovery too. Like you have to be, again, present to discover what it is. Like what lights me up? What does it feel like when things don't feel good? And what does it feel like when it feels great? Because there's certain scents I don't like I'm actually pretty sensitive to smells. And so there are certain like things that I'm like, oh, I can get bowled over really easily. And so just like, what do I want to lean towards? And what do I want to lean away from? Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I love that. Is lilac your favorite floral scent? Now I'm curious.
No, I don't know if I have a favorite. I really like rose when I'm like for my like personal like feels grounding, but I don't know that I would like
Mm.
choose. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I need to lean into that one. Lilacs are
Yeah.
just in bloom right now, so I like
Oh,
definitely like
yeah.
lean into that one, but
Yeah.
with this season. But I don't know. Good question. I'll
Go
write it
on
down.
like yeah,
I'll
go
think on
on like
that.
a
Like scent
smell
hunt.
smellication or something.
Yeah.
Scentification.
Yeah. Go through a flower shop and just find what is the scent that like I just love for right now for this season.
I love that. I went to, speaking of being present, I went to an ecstatic dance event.
Ooh. Uh-huh.
Okay, so I've never been to one of those, and so it was, like, in this forest preserve, like it was kind of like a nice, like, little event center, and there was about 30 of us, and so there was dancing for about 2.5 hours.
Hmm.
And so, it was just fabulous, amazing event, and then in the bathroom, there were scents that you could put on,
Mm.
and I was like, "Oh, they're so smart, those millennials." So smart, 'cause I was old on the spectrum.
Mm.
So there was some Gen Z, there's a lot of millennials, and then there was, like, there was, like, 1 boomer there, I think, 1
Mm.
baby boomer, and I was like and I just sprayed my whole self down with rose, like, spray. I was like, "Oh god, this smells so good." And so now I'm just like and I bought some, so I spray my face every
Mm.
day with rose, and then I'm drinking white rose tea now. So there's
Oh,
but before that, like, my life has been pretty lavender.
yeah.
Like, I've
Yeah.
been pretty hardcore on all, like, the lotions and the essential
Mm.
oils and everything into the lavender. It's just like the lavender is like my soul scent, but
Yeah.
rose is like some bright, and so it's just
Yeah.
like embracing that, right? So, like, taking that time to be like,
Mhm.
I am gonna, like, pat my face down in the morning and then just spritz it with rose. Like, I feel so fancy.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
also being mindful, right? Just bringing those little bits of joy,
Mhm.
like yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I fold my, toilet paper, so it's, like, got that little corner, and I'm like, "I live in a clean bathroom."
And it feels like you're treating yourself like, "Okay, I'm in a fancy place," right? Like, that's what they do.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do that every time. It's amazing. We never run out of toilet paper. It's always has that little corner right there. Awesome. Um, so here's a question I'm just gonna throw out there. Can any and you can feel free to answer. Can anything be mindful? Mindfulness.
I think you can bring mindfulness to anything, right? Is it naturally
Yeah.
mindful? I don't know. I think it does take that presence. You have to
Yeah.
bring it there. And
Yeah.
some experiences call that forth.
Yeah, to be in that moment. So when I wrote I was thinking about this question and I keep having this phrase that came up from childhood and I know it was said around like my dinner table and it was said around like the lunch table and like definitely in middle school. Mind your own business. So like and so I was thinking, right? But that is also a call to mindfulness. It's like being mindfully aware of where we're at, right?
Mhm.
Where we're at and staying in our own lane, right? And
Yeah.
being compassionate, co So I think that that's kind of like coming at it from a negative standpoint, like someone's
Mhm.
putting up like a very strong boundary and saying like, "Don't cross this line, you're done," and that's not polite.
Yeah.
But also, it is also a call to mindfulness. It's like being mindful that what you're talking about is not in your lane. You are driving someone else's car right now. So please
Yeah.
get out. Thank you.
And that goes along with the key of responsibility. Like we, especially
Mm,
as women, as people who love to
mm.
take care of the whole world, we often aren't in our lane. Like we think we're responsible for these things, but we're like not taking care of the things that we're actually responsible for. And
Right.
that's where I think mindfulness teases it out. I know I've like questioned, like, where is that line? Like, I feel responsible. Does that mean I'm responsible?
And I'm
And
like,
like,
how
where am
many
I
cars am
not
I
doing?
driving right
Yeah.
now?
Because it feels like a
You
lot. Like you've got both feet
I
going
just
and
felt like
hands and your head. Yeah. And you're like, which of
love
these
it.
is not mine? Like, really? And like,
Yeah.
which car am I not driving that I should be driving?
Yeah. Where's
Yeah.
my car in this? Oh, it's like broke down like 20 years ago. Crap.
Yeah.
Like I got all these other cars going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's so true. That's so true. Yeah. So I think like I love, even though I used to think I move at the pace of like at the pace of thoughtfulness. Like I'm just a thoughtful
Mhm.
person. Like things take me longer. I was talking with another friend who's also a life coach. She's like, I take on 20 clients a month and I'm just like, oh dear Lord, like my max, like probably half that. Like, because I want to just like, you know, she seems like she has a bigger plate than a metaphorical plate than I do. Right. And so, like her car drives a little faster. Mine's just like, I'm a Sunday driver every day of the week, you know, and that's how I'm rolling right now. So, yeah, so I think anything heavy mindfulness. All right. So let's get on to some examples. So if someone wants to, you know, start being mindful, examples of daily mindfulness practices, just to get into it. So I think we've talked about quite a lot of them. And so I'm always like mindful, like, am I a compassionate co-pilot in the car? So that just makes sure that I'm not driving other people's cars, right? Is this my kid's car? Like they need to be, you know, taking responsibility for finding out what they need to do right now. And because I feel like with my kids both being teenagers, I'm trying to like pass that baton and get out of their car entirely, or maybe just go in the back seat to be like an encouraging cheerleader. But I don't want to give them directions anymore.
Right.
Because my son's gonna, it's like a little over a year, he's out. And so I'm just like, I want you to be in both seats. You got to do both seats right now. And it's hard. Yeah. So that's a whole other show on like
parenting and releasing.
Yeah. Grief, moving through the grief journey of empty nesting situation. But anyway, so other mindfulness activities. You got any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just the ones we named. I mean, I think gratitude can be a key to that, like you said. And I have found that, like, for people who feel intimidated or think that mindfulness can be hard, I think the sensory, like just any sensory experience. So it's like tuning in, like that quick 5 senses check. Can you like hear? What are 5 things that you can hear? What are 4 things that you can see? What are, 3 things you can touch? What are 2 things you can smell? What's 1 thing you can taste? Just going through like that can be under like 2 minutes. So it's not even like, but it's just like bringing yourself to the present moment.
I love
through
that.
the senses, or feeling your feet on the ground. I also like the self check-in. I think that that's really grounding because I do that. It's not like what would be considered like maybe a formal mindfulness practice, but it's like, hey, what are you feeling right now? Like just, we don't ask ourselves that.
Yeah.
Ever. We ask
like
other
how
people.
We taking care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Like what do we
what
need?
Is it? Yeah. What do you need? That's like the essential question of self-compassion is like, what do I need? But you have to be mindful of what's going on inside of you to even like clue in. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation too. How do we tap into what we actually need? Because we're great at guessing what other people need or trying to fulfill other people's. But when it comes to ourselves, we start to hear like no noise when we like, I have no idea what I need, or want.
It's like we know where everyone else's cars are going to go. We need to go, right? But our car, we're just like,
yeah, we don't know where it is. Half the time we haven't located it. We're like, where is the car I should be driving?
I keep hitting the clicker and I don't hear it. Where is it? One of the activities that I started using, I think it was in therapy. I started doing a lot of journaling. And I, coming from a science and math family, it was always like English and the written word and everything was just kind of like superfluous. And it was only good when it's used to like discover new math and science things. And so it's just like, it was something that I didn't even think about, but it was a way in which I used journaling to figure out what my feelings were. Like I didn't have words. I had like, I feel fine. I feel good. And I feel like nervous. It was like nervous. I didn't have like bad, like I didn't want to say bad because, we're supposed to all feel good. And so just be like, I feel a little off today. I feel a little weird, nervous. And that was it. And then I talk about this and because one of the big things I think developing emotional intelligence, one of the big roadblocks is we distract ourselves so bad. And I give away little plastic dinosaurs called Distractosaurus rexes. I have a little Nessie right here. Oh yeah. Because I love swimming, so I picked the Nessie one. Is like I would like clean a closet. I would like drink like 2 cups of coffee. I would like watch I would like scroll Facebook or watch reality TV till my eyes burned, and so that I just passed out. Right, distract. But once I started opening up that space, right, moving into my Sunday driving lane and slowing down, and like starting to figure out everything came out like I didn't have feelings words. So I wrote bad poetry.
Mm.
And it worked. I started to figure out like, oh my God, there's like a whole Wizard of Oz landscape situation inside of me with these feelings. There's a lot of them. It's not just like good and bad and like maybe a couple in between. There's like a million different ways I can
Yeah.
feel. Oh
Yeah.
my God. And then when I get to places of new, like I'm working on becoming proud of myself. Like that's a
Mm.
really, really hard one for me because of my perfectionistic background and like always like moving on to the next and never celebrating. So I'm working on celebrating my little wins and yeah. So it's like I
Mm.
love feelings because there's always more to
Yeah.
experience once you accept that, right? So once you are mindful and you're accepting of your feelings, then it just can open this door to this amazing, like beautiful landscape of like feeling all of the terrible, right? So letting all of the discomfort come in. And I was talking to somebody the other day and I was like, yeah, when my wife and I had like a really hard time in the pandemic for communication, like I remember I just was at this point where I was able to lean in
Mm.
and just be like, you know, this is, like, let's figure this out. And I love you. And, this is hard and it's not working the right now. Like it's not filling me up. And we ended up communicating to each other through a journal
Mm.
because that's what we needed. Like I had been using journaling a lot, like for over a decade. And my wife is like she's not a verbal processor. She's
Mhm.
like a super introvert. So she needs space to process. And so it was like we just honored ourselves and we became like mindful of our relationship and how we need to
Mhm.
communicate as well, as making that connection. So yeah. I feel like a journal, like I wouldn't say it saved our marriage, but definitely saved us during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Because we're all home together, right? And so it was like no private space. We have an open
Yeah.
concept home, not good for pandemics.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
And that puts some space and distance because I think journaling is a good mindful practice because it also, like, your thoughts are then on the page. They're not in your head. Like, again, it's like, how can we be aware and not consumed? And so, like, enough space. It's just like creating enough space.
Yeah, like taking it, right? Moving down a gear, right? And not just
Mhm.
speeding through life. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. All
Yeah.
right. So, so what is so what are the like what has been or do you have a story about the benefits of mindfulness in your life? Hmm,
Mm.
I can
Yeah.
I can go about a story for me first if
Yeah.
you want.
Start with a story. Go for
Okay.
it.
So, I I tell this I've told this story a few times. Um, so at one of my employers, I was in fundraising, and so I was responsible for writing like fundraising letters. And I'd gotten to a place where I realized that I really loved writing, and I really needed to be at home and away from the distraction of the office to be able to put in like my best work. And so there was one day that I was like, all right, I'm probably gonna need the whole day to write like the spring annual appeal or whatever. And my boss was like, yeah, no problem, whatever. And so I get home and I can nail it in the morning. Like it's just like I
Mm.
just felt like I was in such a good place and I just wrote all this stuff. Um and uh and then I go into the office. It was like right or during lunch hour or whatever. In the office, like I share my office with like the admin assistant and like the lights were off. So I was like, oh, she must be at lunch or whatever. And so I'm just gonna like, go to my desk and like not turn on the light. And it's just gonna be like this calm, cool thing. And I hear my boss and the admin assistant talking on the other
Mm.
side because my boss's door is like right on the other side of the office. And I keep hearing my name
Mm.
and I hear my name and I'm just like, oh God, oh God, oh God. And so the pre-mindful Heidi would have quietly picked up all of her bags and her stuff. And she would have quietly exited the building and
Mm.
she would have went home and she would have cried. And then she wouldn't have been able to look at her coworker or her boss in the face. So I remember in that moment, like my whole body, like, so I engaged my compassionate co-pilot, like my whole body, like flushed hot and my hands got really, really cold. And I was like, all right, so I can go home. And then a part of me was like, wait until your coworker comes out and then give her the evil stare that lets her know that, they were talking about you. And, but I can't do that. That's like not, so I made like a pledge, like I need to honor who I am, who's honest and direct. And I kept having those words in my head, like, Heidi, you're honest and direct. You're honest and direct. And so I was like, what do I do? So I stood there and I was clutching my bag and my hands were all like cold and clammy. And I was like, my body was like on fire. And I was like, what do I do? And like my compassion co-pilot's like, Heidi, what do you need to do right now? And I was like, all right, I need to breathe. And so I did some like 2 cleansing breaths, like big belly breaths, like trying to just like bring it down. Cause I could tell like my pupils were probably super dilated. And I was like, if someone came in, I might have punched them accidentally. Yikes. And so I took a couple breaths and I like put my keys down and I put my bag down and I went and I knocked on my boss's door. And I opened that door and I saw 2 of the most embarrassed and surprised people ever. And I said, I just want to let you know that I've been here for a little bit and I've heard my name and whatever it is, I would like to be given the chance to address it. And I sat down and I talked with them for a half hour. And we talked about, it was like my coworker wanted like a more formal funnel for like projects I gave her. That was pretty much it. But it was just like, I completely like, right. I was a compassionate co-pilot. And then that compassionate co-pilot also became my cheerleader. Right. So like, I was like, Heidi, you can do this because you want to be direct and honest.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's one of my like moments that I feel like I'm most proud of in my life was just knocking on that door.
Yeah. That's like courageous brilliance right there of like, how do I face something head on that like never been taught? Like we're not taught to do that, but you're like, you had your new story of I'm someone who's honest and direct. That's who I am. And what would that person do? They would knock on the door.
My
And they
compassionate co-pilot is like, we got this. We can do this, Heidi.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm here for you. This is who we are. Yeah. Beautiful. Oh man. And then you get that moment forever. And it's like not even as bad as we think it would be, right?
Yeah.
Like
And then
listen to stories of like how horrible that could be. And you're like, oh, actually we just sat down and we had a conversation.
Yeah. We just talked about like email Microsoft Outlook tasks. That's what we ended up talking about. But that was it. Right. And then my boss would approve them and then, or not approve them. And then that was the end of the issue. But I always tell, I work with a lot of women and I talk about practice shoes. So like we grow up with this, like everything's right and wrong, good and bad, right? We get graded. We either get everything right or we get some stuff wrong. Right. So we walk around with these shoes on, like, what's the right and wrong path? What's the good and bad? And so I talk about just like time to take those shoes off and put on practice shoes. Like everything is practice. And so now when an uncomfortable situation comes off, I was like, this is going to give me really good practice. And so it makes me more prepared, right? It kind of disengages my fight or flight response. My accidentally might punch someone doesn't even come up in the picture. And yeah, so I'm like, I'm just going to do this my best way that I can. And it's going to be practice for whatever's next. And there were more situations next that I had to use, like build on those skills to be able to get to where I am now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, mindfulness. I feel like it's like a superpower.
And I think it's foundational. I really don't think that. I think anything else, like without that built on it, it's really hard to make change happen. It's hard to be grateful. It's hard to be whatever if we actually aren't aware of like the present moment with acceptance of like, oh, this is the way things are. It's like the Carl Jung statement of like, the irony, I'm going to misquote him, but like the irony is that as soon as I accept myself just as I am, I can change.
Yeah. Or that I will change. Right.
But it unfolds, but we really have to know how to do that. How do you sit with what is without running away screaming or reacting?
I love that. I love that. So this totally reminds. This is going to be slightly tangential. So I meditate every day with a bunch of different apps, but I use the Calm app,
Mm.
and they have sleep stories. And so one of the have you done the Calm app before?
I had a trial during the pandemic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the kid stories, we listen to the kid stories too, is called The 17th Princess. And so this whole beautiful kingdom, and they have this tulip garden. And every year they have a tulip festival, and it's like this huge rainbow garden. It's kind of like, you're in Holland and giant tulips everywhere. And so this
Without
year
the windmills.
yeah, no mention of windmills. And so this king has 17 princesses, which always makes me feel bad, right, for the queen. I'm like, damn, that sucks. Unless he has many queens, but we've only heard of one queen. Anyway, so the tulips aren't going to bloom in time for this festival, and the king is freaking out, and he's got like all of the resources of the kingdom, like micromanaging these tulips that are not blooming, and he's like kind of going around like, oh my god, I'm angry, and smash smash smash. And he like asks all of his 17 princesses, and like the first 16, like from the oldest to the almost youngest, they were like, I don't know what to do, you're dad and you're in charge. With the 17th, like, can we just like go around and ask people what they think? And dad's like, I don't think that's gonna solve anything. But then she just totally takes off and like does her own thing, and she finds this wise woman that basically says like, sometimes we just need to accept what is, and it will unfold in its own time. And then so she goes on this journey, and then dad like sends out all these search parties because he's like, oh my god, she ran away because I was being a-hole. And then she comes back, and all is like, he's like, oh thank god. And then he's like basically like, oh, having you in my life is more important than the tulips. And then the next day for the festival, lo and behold, because then the dad was like, all right, everyone needs to just chill out, and we're not going to worry about tulips anymore because our people are more important than if these things bloom on time for the festival. And then so they all have like a nice dinner together, and they go to sleep, and then the next morning they bloom because they accept it.
Yeah.
They accept it, like accepting once you accept what is and stop trying to strangle, like you can bloom, right? Yeah. Just say like, hey, I'm not ready yet. I'm still perfect. Not ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love this.
Yeah. Wise sleep stories.
Yeah.
From the sleep stories on the Calm app, right? You found all sorts of places.
I know. Yeah. Mindfulness can creep up anywhere. And so yay for that app having nice mindfulness stuff for kids, right?
Yeah. Because we all need it. And I feel like we're moving towards that it is. Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah. All right. So we're going to move on to the snowman of affirmation. Yay. And I keep him even through the spring and the summer, my little snowman, my little glass snowman. Do you have a particular color that you would like, Jennifer?
Green today, please.
Green. All right. Your affirmation is, ooh, I choose to be happy instead of right.
Sometimes that's a hard choice. That's a good one.
That is, right? But think about like going with the flow and being mindful of just like choosing our joy, right?
Yeah.
Like instead of being right. So my family of origin would completely disagree with that affirmation, and they would say that doesn't work at all.
Some people are very attached to that.
Yes. I'm married to an Enneagram 1, so that would be really hard. As the perfectionist, right? Or is one the reformer?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So mine is, I love and am proud of my past self.
Oh, yay. Isn't that wonderful? You are.
Oh my God.
I'm like sinking into that story. You're like, oh yeah, go Heidi.
Yay. And for anyone
that was the self who knocked on that door. Like, I'm proud of her.
Yeah. I did the hard things. One time I had to stand on a bed to get my ex-husband to listen to me. That was a hard one too. So that was my practice for knocking on that door, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So for everyone who is watching live or in the replay, obstacles are my opportunities. So Yeah. Obstacles are your opportunities to practice mindfulness.
Yeah. It's like a roadblock. Like you can get angry that there's like a traffic jam, or you have the opportunity to be like, what's going on with me right now? Or to listen to the music, or to roll the windows down, or to
Mm.
do whatever, right? Feel your hands on the steering wheel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah, have a Twizzler, or Twizzy. Those are called Twizzies in my family.
And
Yeah, fabulous. All right. So if anyone watching live or in the replay, if you have questions, please send us and let us know what you think of mindfulness and if you have any mindfulness practices. All right, Jennifer, this has been absolutely fabulous.
yes, I always love
Ugh,
talking to you. Good
yay.
conversations, good stories. I love it.
Yes. Yes. All right. So until next time, sending you love, light, and laughter. I am Heidi Esser with the beautiful Jennifer Erwin, and we'll see you soon. Or at least I'll see you soon, and Jennifer will probably see you later. All right. Bye, everybody.